All right, good morning. I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and in today's video, we are going to build a child's backpack. Okay, my son is 9, and he's been wearing one of these since he was 7, and it has fit him very well. Still fits him well, all the way up till probably 11 or 12. He'll probably outgrow it a little bit then, and I'll have to modify the pattern. This went out in last month's mystery box with this paper pattern right here. Okay. It's a very simple bag to make. There's not a ton of steps to it. You can hand sew it. You can use a sewing machine. There's not a lot of hardware to it. That's the best part. There's 2 zippers, and that's really it. The rest of it's all sewn together. You could add some buckles and stuff on the shoulder straps to make them a little bit adjustable and everything, but I haven't really found them necessary. Again, my son's been wearing them for a couple of years, and I'm still making it with the same size straps now as I did then, and I've made him one every year, and I haven't changed the size or the pattern or the shoulder straps. And he's grown a lot in 2 years. So anyway, all that being said, this is a great project. Unfortunately, it's a Monday and he is at school, which means he has his backpack on, and I don't have it to show you. The letter that went out in the mystery box has some pictures of it. This one I made for him has his favorite video game character on it. I don't know, his name's Bendy or something like that. Anyway, it's a great little project. It can be made out of just about any leather up to about 5-6 ounce. When I say just about any leather, I mean leathers that were intended for a turned bag in the first place, not veg tan or a heavy oil tan or anything like that. In the mystery box, we sent out this right here in a couple of different color variations. This one's the gray one. I know we sent out a lot of blue. Anyway, this is about a 4 to 5 ounce. It's very, very pliable. It's not super stretchy at all, but it's good stuff. It's actually really nice stuff. Once we fulfilled all the mystery boxes, we ordered more because it's nice stuff. Other than that, I've got some strap material here for the shoulder straps. And then I've got the zipper for the main body of the bag and the zipper for the pocket on the bag. The zipper for the main body is just zipper by the yard. We're going to put some zipper slides on it here in a little bit. But yeah, without further ado, we're going to kind of get going. I will be using a Cobra Class 18 to sew this together. But again, you can easily hand sew it together. It just takes a lot longer. That's why I don't do it on the videos. Because then this would be a week-long video of me finding the time to sit down and sew the pieces together individually. The store needs me. I can't dedicate the week to it, unfortunately. So anyway, I have pre-cut out my pieces. Once again, just to save some time, I'm going to bring the camera down so you can see my desk here. There we go. I have pre-cut out the pieces. Wow, where's that light bulb coming from? There. I've redone my space here. If you can't tell, I've changed the desk over to a little bit of an angle, and I put in some lighting to try to help make these videos a little bit better. But this is the first video I've done since I've done that, so there may be some hiccups, some issues, some glaring. I'm working on it. I am no professional at all at this type of stuff, but I am trying to do what I can to make the videos as good as I can for the folks that are having to watch and listen to me. So anyway, we have gusset pieces. This is the bottom gusset of the bag, and then these 2 pieces right here make up the top gusset of the bag. There's 2 because there'll be a zipper in the middle of it, okay? This is the pocket piece right here. I know it's funny shaped, kind of shaped like a Maltese cross type thing. What we're going to end up doing is pinching these corners together and sewing them, and then that'll make the pocket poof out. Lack of a better word. They're going to make the pocket rise out to where there's room in it to put stuff. Okay. Then I've got a front and a back piece. Very simple right there. Okay. And then I've got a piece that I've cut out, just a big piece for the handle. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then I've got 2 main shoulder strap pieces, and I'm going to use this brown right here on top of them to give the shoulder strap a lot of strength. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it does add a really nice extra little bit to it to put some extra color into the bag and stuff like that. I could have easily cut out those pieces out of even more of this and done it that way, and that would have been fine too. But I just thought, well, here's these brown straps. They look pretty good. All right, without further ado. The leather that we sent out for this project, you don't have to skive it, but it can help. I talk about it on all my turn bag projects. If you use a leather that's malleable enough, that's foldable enough and stuff, then skiving becomes less of an issue. However, it really can help the professional look of the bag and your corners and your edges and stuff like that if you do skive it, okay? So I will skive this. I'm going to use a Cobra NP4 skiving machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skive all edges or all sides of these 2 pieces right here. I'm going to skive the long sides of all of my gusset pieces. And then on this, I am going to skive these little areas around where it'll be sewn and folded out. So that's the skiving I'm going to do. Yeah. So I'm going to pause the camera here and readjust some things, and when I come back, I'll be standing over there at the skiving machine. Okay, so here we are at the skiving machine, and I am going to skive my pieces just as I described. Just over here at the desk grabbing them. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to start with the large pieces, and they're the easiest ones to do, so that'll kind of get me used to using the skiver today. This machine is worth its weight in gold. If you have any plans on making bags and stuff like that, I love this thing. It really has changed how I do a lot of things, and so I can't recommend it enough. It is very possible to hand skive all this, but again, it would take a lot of time. This video would be extremely long, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, this machine has spoiled me, and I'm not that great at hand skiving anymore. Never was very great at it, but now I'm really not. Alright, so that was one of the big pieces. Two big pieces. Alright, so these are the gusset pieces. I'm just going to do the long sides of those because we're actually going to trim off the short sides here in a little bit to make them really match and fit what we're doing. One of the top gusset pieces. Here's the other top gusset piece. And it's just, I guess I should have shown, it's only about I don't know, 5/8 of an inch that I'm skiving off there. And I'm just skiving a little bit of the thickness off. Not a ton of it at all. Just a little bit. On the bottom gusset piece, I'm going to go ahead and skive all 4 sides because we're not going to trim it. We're going to trim the top to match. right, now here's where it gets a little bit hairy, and that's skiving these edges right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put it in here, and I'm just going to go real light and slow, and I don't have to skive that whole 5/8 off. I'm just enough that if I sewed a 1/4 of an inch in on that it would work out. Okay, so there's what one of them looks like, and the reason we did that is so we'll turn it like that and sew it together right there, and then when we turn it right back out, it'll have created a bit of a pocket. Okay, that was a terrible example, but I promise once it's sewn it'll look great. But this right here shows the versatility of this machine to be able to get around that area. You don't have to be a pro at it at all. This is not a difficult machine to use. Much like a sewing machine, it just takes a little bit of foot control, you know, to make sure you don't get out of hand with it. Because you can easily pull a project up under that blade if you're not paying attention and practicing a little bit of foot control. So I definitely have more foot control on this than I do when I drive my vehicle. Okay, there's 3 of them, and then here's the 4th. What I'm going to do, kind of speak ahead while we're talking here, going, I am going to get as much prep work done as I can, so we only have to move all the cameras and stuff to the sewing machine one time. It just it makes it so much more difficult to move back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so yeah, that being said, I need to pause the camera so that I can move the camera back to the desk. Alright, so here we are back at the desk. I'm going to take all the pieces that I just did all that to, and I'm just going to set them aside, except for the pocket piece. And then I'm also going to hang on to the piece for the shoulder straps here. Okay? We'll do a little bit of prep work on those. So on the pocket piece, we have to put the zipper. Alright? So what I have here, we at Makers have some amazing double-sided tape in different widths, and we love it and everything, but I can't get it in 1/8 of an inch Tandy can. So this is a roll of Tandy's double-sided tape, 1/8 of an inch wide, and the reason that I use the 1/8 of an inch is when I'm doing these little bitty zippers, I can use a smaller amount of it and get the zipper on. Of course, I have to find my zipper. Where in the world did it go? Give me just a second, folks. Alright, awful embarrassing when you can't find something and it's just right in front of you, but it's underneath something. So, what I needed to find was that little zipper right there. Okay, so I'm going to use my 1/8 inch tape. Move some of this other stuff out the way here. Use my 1/8 inch tape. Turn this piece over, and I'm just going to line both sides of that slot right there with the tape. And I'm going to get it right up on the edge, but I want to make sure it's not hanging over. Okay, because you don't want that tape showing on your finished project. It just doesn't look nice. It has a little bit of a shine to it, and it can also lead to you know, gather a bunch of dirt and stuff like that, and it just doesn't look nice. So put it right there on the very, very edge. And you want to make sure that you install your zipper here before you sew these corners in, because if you sew the corners in first, it's much harder to put that zipper on there if the project's not flat anymore. Okay, so I'm going to pull the backing off this tape here. And I'm going to try something different. I've never done this before, but I just thought of it all of a sudden. I was like, what happens if I just did one side of the zipper at a time? Maybe it would be a lot easier to reposition this way. Now I'm going to very, very lightly press the zipper down, just enough to barely tack it to that tape. And then I want to turn it over, because I want to make sure that the zipper, the train tracks of the zipper, are right in the middle of that slot and not, you know, way too high or way too low. Sorry, still trying to figure out this camera thing. And I think that's going to be okay right there. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll fold the zipper back a little bit to grab this other piece of double-sided tape, take the backing off of it. Then I'm just going to press down. There we go. Okay. So that zipper is now ready to sew, which means we're ready to set that one aside for a moment. And we're going to go over here to the shoulder straps. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a wider piece of tape. This is 3/4 of an inch right here. This is something that we have here at Makers. Sorry, coffee break. And the 3/4 inch, I'm going to run it right down the center of the back of one of these shoulder straps. Okay. Just like this. And then I'm just going to cut it off at the bottom. Now, the reason I did that is because what we're going to do is we're going to roll the edges of this shoulder strap and make them meet in the middle like that, and they'll tape down. Okay? That being said, you don't have to worry about getting it 1000% in the middle. That's one of the reasons that I like to cover this seam up with this, is because then if the seam wavers a little bit to the right or the left, none the wiser. Nobody can tell, nobody can see. Okay? So, yeah. Pull some of this, try to get rid of glare there. All right. All right, so pulling the back off the tape again. And what I'm going to do is just take the edge, fold it over, and press it down. Just like that. Okay. Press, press, press. And then once I know that it's in a good position, I'll press a little harder to go ahead and get it to bond to that tape really well. But I only want to press lightly until I know that we're in the right spot. Otherwise, we're going to tear up some stuff trying to get it back off that tape and stretch out our leather. We don't want to do that. Okay. I'm trying to get this more towards the... This is a big desk. I mean, this thing's 30 inches across, I believe I made it. And so I want to get it toward the middle for you. Okay. I'm just putting it right against the other half of the seam there, and giving it a little push. All right, just like that. All right, and then the next thing we'll do is I'm going to edge this brown strap, and it'll lay across it like this, and just sew to it. And it'll be a nice, pretty brown and gray strap, just like that. All right, give me a minute to get some tools out and stuff, and I'll be right back. All right. So I'm going to use a number 2 round edger from Ron's Tools here, and I'm just going to run down the edges of this big long brown strap I've got. Right now this one strap will be cut, or here in a bit, it'll be cut into 2, and it will be both shoulder straps, but might as well just edge it while it's one. This leather is kind of an oil tan, I guess. So therefore, I'm not going to try to burnish it. I'm just going to get a good, clean, rounded edge on it, and it'll be just fine. Made me think and realize just a minute ago, and I have to apologize to anybody that got this pattern off of the mystery box, but there are 2 very simple pieces missing off the pattern. It's just a little triangle. I will give you all the dimensions and measurements for that triangle here in just a moment when we get to that point, but it's what holds the bottom of this strap to the bag. It could be sewn into the seam of the bag, but the triangle that I'll show you is much easier. So again, I apologize for that. I try really hard to, after I complete the pattern and put it all out and ready for print, I try to use one and actually make the project just to make sure everything is there. And well, that just didn't happen, did it? If you struggle with your edge bevelers or your edgers, and they don't just slide right down the edge like this one is, you may want to continue look into sharpening them, or maybe they even just need a good stropping. So you would take some, you would round the edge of a piece of leather and take your jeweler's rouge or rubbing compound, buffing compound, whatever you got, and put it on that rounded edge, and then you just take and pull your edger against it, you know. So instead of pushing like you're cutting, you just pull it against it, and it'll buff up that edge a little bit and help to keep it sliding through the leather like it ought to. Just about, no matter whose brand it is, just about all of them start out nice and pretty and sharp, and they just slide right through the leather, and by your third or fourth project on some of them, you're like, well, what happened? So, or if they're not, you know, completely cutting the leather well and they're leaving it real fibrous and frayed, it could be real fibrous leather, but there's a good chance it could be a dull edger as well. So, all right, we got this done. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to cut this strap directly in the middle. Both pieces will be too long, but I can always trim it off later. I'd rather just go ahead and cut it right down the middle, and that way I know that I've got an even amount for each of the two straps. Okay, so now I have two straps. So I'm going to go back over here to this piece that I did, and I am going to put another piece of tape over the top of the seam that I created earlier. Okay, like this. And then I'm just going to take and lay my leather strap across it. And then it'll be ready to take to the sewing machine here in a little bit. Now when I do that though, I'm going to leave a couple of inches on the top and a couple of inches on the bottom to make sure I've got plenty of room, you know, to attach it to the bag itself and all that. So I'll just kind of center it on there. And I just want to carefully lay the strap right in the middle of it. And that's going to look real nice with some stitching on it. Okay, and to make sure everything sits together, we're going to take my favorite part, which is my little rolly tool, and I'm just going to press it down. Alright, so everything I just did here, I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to do it to the other strap, and then when I come back, we're going to go over to the sewing machine and start putting this bad boy together. Alright folks, so while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and make these little triangles I was telling you about. And the easiest way to make two little triangles is to start out with a square. So I'm going to get my good knife. There we go. So I'm going to cut out a little square here. Okay. And I want it to be 3 inches by 3 inches. So all I'm doing is taking this big quilter's square here, and I made sure that one side was a 90 degree, a right angle, and now I am moving it to where 3 inches here, 3 inches here, which means this will be a 3-inch square. But I'll tell you what, let's make it 4, just in case. We can always trim it down. Okay, there we go. Now I'm just going to take and split it in half. And what do you know? We made 2 triangles. And that really is the easiest way to make a triangle to me. I have struggled with making a right triangle before, and finally I figured out, you know what, just make a square and cut it in half, and it'll work. So yeah, 4 inches is the way to go, folks. So what this will do is this is going to end up folding in half like this, and then sewing this edge into the side of the bag, and that way your shoulder strap here will go into that and sew in later on. And that way you're not trying to sew the shoulder strap into the seam of the bag directly. So I'm going to go and skive the long edge of these 2 triangles, because that's what will be actually in the seam of the bag. Sorry, the short edges. I'm just batting a million today. When it's folded in half, it becomes the long edge, so I'm going to do the short edges. I'm going to skive them down, okay? Alright, so we got the shoulder straps ready to sew. We set them aside here. Now what we're going to do is work on the top gusset, which will have a zipper, okay? So what I need to do now is, the plan is we'll roll one edge over, put the zipper on it, roll the other edge over, and it will also kind of overlap the zipper a little bit so that the zipper's not just out there for the world to see, I guess you can say. It just adds a little bit of professionalism and class to the bag, I guess. But anyway, let's start with the small side, because that will not be the overlapping part. Alright, and I'm just going to take some of my 1/4 inch double-sided tape. You can use the 1/8 of an inch if that's what you've got laying there. But I like the 1/4 of an inch for doing a rolled edge, because it's just the perfect amount of rolled edge without having to think about it or measure it. So, putting it on here, and then I'm just going to fold that edge over. Simple as that. Okay, so I got it like that. And I'm going to pre-fold this a little bit. That way the leather's stretched and ready to go that way once I take the paper off of the double-sided sticky there. Okay. There we go. Remove the double-sided sticky, or the paper off of it. And then I'm just going to fold over a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch. Okay, I do want to try to keep it straight. The easiest way to do this is to do, an inch, inch and a half of it at a time. Don't just move a tiny bit of it over, or roll a tiny bit of it over at a time, because then your project will start to bow. So I try to move over, 3 fingers widths or so at a time, press it down together. There we go. Now I'm going to go back to my 1/8 inch tape. Okay, again, this is what I like to use on my zippers. And I'm going to lay it right along the very edge of what was folded over. Not the folded edge, but the cut edge of what was folded over there. And that's where I'll stick my zipper. Okay. Paper off the back of that. There we go. All right, and then I want to take this and I'm going to lay it down to where the folded edge is just 1/8 of an inch or so from the zipper tracks, okay? Like that. And you just want to make sure that it's straight all the way down. One of the easiest things to pick out on a handmade item is a zipper that wavers back and forth, okay? You want it to go nice and straight. Okay, now set that aside for a moment. I'm going to do the exact same thing over here, except once I place it onto here, I'm going to try to overlap that a little bit more. Actually, no, I'm not, because I really like the black zipper, and I think it looks good with the gray. And I'm using black thread on this, so forget I said anything. If I was going to do that, what I would do, I'd skive a little bit further in and make this a longer fold over, okay? And then I would overlap it to where it was like that. And then it would cover that up. But again, I'm not going to. I specifically chose the gray and the black for a reason, so why not show it off? Because the other zipper on this bag, the one on the pocket, is also black, and that will tie it all together. So we're just going to do it exactly like what we did on this piece. And I'll fold it over, and then I'll stick it to the zipper just right, 1/8 of an inch from the tracks of the zipper. We'll call it pretty. This one's a little bit easier since it's a wider piece of leather. It's not as it doesn't want to fold and waver as much as the other piece did just a minute ago. So it goes a little quicker. So there's that. I'll get my 1/8 inch tape here and do the same thing again. There we go. And I'll peel the paper off of that one. Of course, this one wants to be difficult. There we go. And then same thing, just gonna lay it across there, 1/8 of an inch or so from the zipper tracks. Just like so. If you'll notice, these aren't all the exact same lengths. That's okay. Again, we're going to trim this when it's all said and done. And so that is okay. All right. Use my roller, press that down real nice. And then after I sew the pieces to the zipper, I'll go ahead and put my, my zipper slides on them. And before we, of course, sew the two gussets together. Okay. So, I think that's all the prep work I can do. I'm going to pause the video, and when I come back, we're going to be over at the sewing machine, but I got a lot of stuff to move to get the lighting and everything over there now. So yeah, it'll be just a second, and we'll be sewing. Alrighty, so here we are back at the sewing machine, or I guess for this video, at the sewing machine for the first time. First thing I'm going to do is work on this pocket here. Okay, we got the zipper put on it. Now we just need to sew around that zipper. And I'm just going to sew right along the very edge of of the of where the leather meets the zipper. Okay. This sewing machine currently has size 138 thread in it, and again, this is a Cobra Class 18 sewing machine that I'm using today. I can't stress enough, you can hand sew this project. You can. You don't have to have a machine to do the things that I'm doing. There was a lady commented on last month's mystery box video that she was disappointed because she has to have a sewing machine. I'm like, well, I'm pretty clear on the idea that you don't have to have one. I understand it's a big investment, and many hobbyists don't want to have a need for a sewing machine, and that's okay. Some professionals even don't want a sewing machine, and that's okay too. Alright, so these are the nylon coil zippers, so when I go to sew through the zipper here at the end, it'll be okay. I'm just going to sew through it normal and pretend it's not even there. If this were one of the zippers with metal teeth, I would be very, very careful going through it so that I didn't hit one of those metal teeth dead on with that needle and cause damage to my sewing machine, or break the needle, or break the thread. Mostly cause damage to the sewing machine. I can fix the needle, I can fix the thread. Oops. Sometimes I get a little heavy-footed. Alright, so I'm back to my original stitch here, so I'm just going to put the needle right back in that first stitch hole, and then over stitch a couple of stitches, and that'll lock that in. Okay. Pull it out of the machine, and then we're going to work on the pocket pieces, or the corners that we skived earlier, so that we can make this pocket the shape it needs to be. Okay, so I've got extra zipper hanging off over here. Alright, so what I'm going to do is grab my scissors and just cut that off. It is unneeded, it's sewn in, so the zipper slide is not going to come off the end because it's sewn in. So, alright, now I'm just going to take and I'll fold it over, and I'm going to sew down each of these little corners here, and yeah, that'll give us the shape of the pocket that we need. One. Clip the threads off of it here, and we'll just move over here and fold the next one in half and sew it down. Okay, we're going to do this 4 times, once for each of the 4 corners. So, I'm not going to get up and go over there and pause the camera because it's out of reach. But if you don't want to watch me do all 4 of them, then feel free to fast forward about 2 minutes. There's 2 down. This one, I'm going to unzip it just a tiny bit to get my zipper, to make sure that the end of my zipper doesn't get caught in my sewing there. Okay, the slide, that is, the handle on the slide. Because that would be, that'd be pretty ugly what it does to the needle in the machine. Okay. and turn it right side out and see how we did. Hopefully we did well. So, like I said, all you have to do is kind of bend those little corners right back out. And then when we put this down on the bag and sew it down here in a minute, it'll be a protruding pocket. Okay, zip that pocket back up there, and yeah, there's a little bit of trim work to do to cut the corners down and stuff like that, but for the most part, there it is. All right, so now we're just gonna sew along the edges of our zipper here. Okay, and I don't have to do anything fancy on the ends. I'm going to backstitch it, a couple of stitches just to hold it all in, and then just sew them down. But the ends of these will actually be hidden inside the side seams of the bag. So again, there's no fanciness going to happen there. There's one side. Now all I'm going to do is flip this thing around. I'm not even going to bother cutting the threads. Flip it around over here and sew down the other side. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay, now the goal here is the gusset, once completed with the zipper in it, needs to be the same width as the bottom gusset. Okay, and I can tell just by looking at it that it's considerably wider. So I'm going to lay the bottom gusset over it, and we'll see how much wider it really is, and we may have to cut off and, yeah, considerably wider. Alright, so you know how I always show you when I made a mistake. That's the bottom gusset piece that I did right there. Here's the other top gusset piece. Now, so far, we're not in any kind of an emergency. I just need to cut off another bottom gusset piece. So, I'm going to pause this and do that, and we'll come back, and hopefully I won't look like an idiot anymore. Alright folks, we're all about making mistakes is human nature, and I am extra human in that aspect. So, what I did is, I just went ahead and cut me out a new bottom piece, since I accidentally sewed the bottom piece to the top piece here. Okay, and then I just trimmed, because after you sew your zipper in and everything up here, the goal is it needs to be the same width as the bottom piece. So, then I just trimmed it down to where those two are the same width. That way the bag is the same width all the way around. Okay, so we're going to set those aside for a moment, and we're going to go ahead and sew the straps together. And all I'm going to do is just sew down the edges all the way, and I'll just start in some random place back up here where it'll be sewn inside the bag, and then go all the way down to another random place where it'll be sewn inside the bag, and then go back up the other side. Okay, no biggie. So. again, I'm just going to come down here further than I know I need to go. And then I'll start sewing up the other side. Not back stitching, not anything, because all the ends of this will be sewn inside the bag, so it's no big deal. There's what that looks like when it's done. And then now I will go ahead and sew the other one. It's a really nice shoulder strap for a bag, honestly. It's probably a little bit too heavy duty for a kid's bag, but I'd rather it be too heavy duty than too light duty. Okay. I'm gonna pause the camera and I'll sew up the other one right quick. All right, so I brought you back over to the desk for a couple of minutes. To do a couple of things that would just be easier on this big table than it would be on that little bitty sewing machine table. Okay. So what are we gonna do? First thing we need to do is go ahead and put our zipper slides on. All right. So you take your area here that's all nice and zipped up, and you unzip it. Oops. Where I stretch that across there, I gotta cut that thread. There we go. All right. So when zipping this up together, well, it's pretty easy to do. All you do is take your zipper slide, put it on one side a little bit, put it a little ways down there, 1/4 of an inch or so. Okay, now this does help if you have 3 hands. So if you were born with 3 hands, you have an advantage. And anyway, and then you put the other end in the zipper as well, and you kind of work it to where they're together, and you pull, and there it goes. See, my 3rd hand came right out, and there it is. We're not done. She started to walk away. All right, so we're going to put a zipper coming from each side on this project, just because most backpacks, you know, you unzip them from the top like that, and it's just easier. So we're going to run this almost all the way to the end. Okay, we're going to put the other one on the other end, and there's a long side and a short side now. So we'll put it on the long side, and then work the short side into it, and then, hang on just a second. All right, and then we pull. we didn't quite have it on there. All right, so we're gonna try that one more again. Okay, put the long side. There we go. Put the long side on. I know my hands are in the way. I'm so sorry. I've not yet figured out a way to avoid that without having a cameraman. Why doesn't this want to go into... Looks like it's not curving around. There we go. All right, and then we just work our zipper in. There we go. Now, when that's done, when you zip the 2 zipper ends, the slides up to each other, you want to look and see if there's a big bubble on one side compared to the other. Okay, and I did a good job. I got really lucky. Once I finally got it on, I got it on right. Okay, and what I mean by a bubble is right now, the left and the right sides of this are pretty even. Okay, but if they weren't properly aligned, then one of these would have more teeth in it, and it would create a big bubble on one side. And we would have to pull one of the 2 ends off and realign them and start over again. We did good though, so we don't have to do that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is start marking my centers. All right, so let me grab my Sharpie marker here, and I'm just going to simply fold my pieces in half, my bottom gusset and my top gusset. Fold them in half and mark right where the middle of it is on the flesh side of the leather. So the suede side of the leather, okay? So there it is right there. I'm just marking the center of it, top and bottom, 2 little ticks. And then this one, since I have a piece that's shorter and a piece that's longer, I'm going to use the shortest part and base my center off of it. So I'll fold it over until this part right here is, again, you won't have this problem if you weren't an idiot like me and didn't sew the wrong pieces together. But luckily that's a easy mistake to overcome on this project. So, alright, marked my centers. Now I need to take the front and back side of my bag. We haven't messed with these pieces yet other than to skive them. And I'm going to fold them in half like so. And I'm going to mark those centers as well. Okay? And I'm not creasing it. I don't want to, stretch the leather out or anything. I just need to know where my centers are. Okay, so there's my top and my bottom. And then I'll do the exact same thing on the other one. Just like that. Okay, now we did all of that so that we can do this. We're going to take our little clips, okay? These things are just worth their weight in gold when you're making bags. I don't like to glue bag pieces together because when I turn it right side out, I would just hate it if glue was showing in the seam, and that would be terrible. So I use lots and lots of clips. So I am clipping where you can see this centerpiece here, the flat side of this bag, or the flat short side, is the bottom of the bag, and then of course the oval up here, or the round side, is the top of the bag. Okay, and I'm going to clip it to where it is finished side to finished side together. And then I'm just going to go around the bag, clipping the 2 pieces together. Okay, and what we're doing is we're making it to where the gussets line up perfectly with each other so that we can trim the top gusset and sew it to the bottom gusset. So we gotta mock up the bag basically and kind of pretend like we're putting it together to get that measurement exactly right. And it's not a measurement that I put on the pattern because of the idea that if you're using a little bit thicker leather, then it's going to be one way. If you're using a little bit stretchier leather, it'll be another way. And it can get too big or too small real quick. And so I don't mark one position on the pattern because it could be wrong depending on what you're using. Okay. Now I am going to go ahead and do this very top piece right here, or top area. I'm going to fold it down. All right. So I'm going to use my 1/4 inch double-sided tape wherever it is. Sorry, I got all kinds of scraps and stuff on the desk now. There it is. All right. Well, that's weird. There was paper there with no tape. There's the tape. Not sure what happened there. Got a new piece of this. Must have had a cut in my roll. Alright. So, I'm just going to take that 1/4 inch, fold it over, stick it down, call it good. Both ends. Alright, now I'll finish clipping this up like I was starting to. Okay, so there's the bottom piece. Now the top piece. I'm just going to overlap them tiny, tiny bit and clip around. Alright, got this all clipped up, and it basically is just right. Okay, so these are just barely overlapping here on the ends, and that's exactly where I want them to be. If they were a little bit too long, you would trim them off. If they're a little bit too short, you can either cut a bottom gusset that's a little bit longer, or you can just trim off a little bit of your backpack piece to make the backpack a little bit shorter. Okay, those are two easy, quick fixes for if they're a little bit too short. Okay, the pattern is pretty much right on once you get it all molded and into place. So yeah, if you're using a thicker leather, it might end up being a tiny bit short for you, and that's what you might need to do. So now I'm going to take and sew the top gusset to the bottom gusset by just sewing, I'll just tape them together and sew it right along that line right there. And yeah, and then it'll be a complete circle, all right? I'm not going to move the camera over to the sewing machine just yet for that, because when I come back, we've still got a little bit of work to do over here before we go back over and get back on the sewing machine for the rest of this project. So, I'll be right back. Alrighty, so I sewed that together real quick, right there, and right there. The bottom gusset overlaps the top gusset, therefore completing the end of that zipper. Okay? So there you have it. Now, we can go ahead and clip that back to the back of the backpack if we like. But in order to save some time, I'm going to go ahead and start with the next thing we want to do, which is to put the pocket on the front part of the backpack. Okay. And the first thing you're going to do with that is I want to clip off these little extra corners. Okay. See how that sticks up right there? So what I'm going to do is fold this and get the edges of it aligned real good. And I'm just going to take my scissors and lop that sucker off right there. Okay, and I'm going to do that on all 4 of these corners. Okay, very technical stuff here. There's 3 of them. And then the numero quattro. That's right. Practically bilingual, folks. All right. So, shiny bag out of the way. Now, the pocket, obviously the zipper goes in the up position or on the top, you know. I'll take it and just kind of pre-fold where the corners are here. I'll just kind of crease that area in between them, give the pocket a little bit better shape, you know. It doesn't have to be like rolled over creased by any means, but a little bit of direction is all it needs. Okay. And this one's the hardest because it's so close to that cut, it just wants to go to where the cut is for the zipper. All right, so let's get the front of our bag out here. All right, now we want the pocket, of course, centered right to left, but I'd say we're going to put it, say, 2 inches from the base. There's no real exact measurement that it needs to be, okay? I can use this ruler, or I could even use, smarter would be our centering ruler if I've got one sitting around here. There it is. Our centering ruler, because it is exactly 2 inches wide, so if I line it up with the edge of the leather here, down here, then I'll know that we're good to go. And then as far as the center of the project, let me turn that over. I'm going to put the centering ruler in the middle, right to left of this piece, and then I'll center this on it. But first, I need some double-sided tape so that once this thing's ready to put into position, I got a way to stick it there, okay? So all I'm doing is taking some of this 1/4-inch double-sided tape and lining it almost at the very edge. And I'm going to do 4 separate pieces, okay? One between each of these seams that make up the corners. I've tried to do it with, you know, 1 piece going all the way around, and it's just easier to do the 4. And that way you can position 1 piece at a time, you know, to get all the sides straight and where they need to be. You'll see what I mean in just a second. This is the most fun part of this bag, is trying to position this daggone pocket exactly where it needs to be straight. Again, the position is not that important as much as just keeping it straight so it looks right. Nobody likes a crooked pocket, right? Okay, so again, all I'm doing is putting it right inside the edge here. Of course, on the flesh side, the inside of the pocket. That's what will stick to the bag. I keep bringing it over closer to me, and I forget that, hey, it needs to be closer to the camera. Okay. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take that bottom piece of tape off. Since I've got the ruler to set up against on this part, I just figure it's the easiest side to stick. So I'm going to take it and put its flat side against the ruler. And stick it down. Just like so. Okay. And then once this bottom part's done, the rest of it really will kind of fall into place. Not as easily as we want it to, but easy enough. Okay. So pop that back up a little bit, and I'll just work on my sides. And the biggest thing is when you're looking at putting these sides on, you may want to throw a ruler up there to give you a straight edge to work against, but you just want it to be a straight line. You don't want it to be all whomper-jawed and rounded and all that. I mean, this is a square pocket, so it should have a pretty square base to it. Okay. There we go. Come over here and do this side now. There we go. That's 3 out of 4. Let's see if we can get just as lucky with the last side. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to unzip this and it'll make it a little bit easier. I think, in theory. Okay, now I'll take the paper off the back side of the tape here. Put the ruler up against it. There we go. Like it was meant to be there. Okay. So I'm not going to do any forming or anything of this yet until I've sewn it on, because I don't want to accidentally pull that tape off. Okay. So we're going to set that aside for just a minute because it'll get sewn. And we're going to do all the prep work that we can before we have to go back over to the sewing machine. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and clip this back to the back side. Now, there's no big secret to this. It's going to be exactly like it was clipped on there before it was sewn together, except when it comes to the top gusset. Okay, this is the back of the backpack. Okay, when it comes to the top gusset, you want the wider part against the back of the backpack, and then the narrower part against the front of the backpack. Okay, and I can't really give you a reason as to why, except that's just how backpacks are made. I haven't made one the other way to figure out that, you know, maybe your stuff falls out of it when you unzip it or something crazy like that. But every backpack I looked at when I was researching, you know, making this thing went this way. So that's how the way this one was made too. All right, so I'm not going to bore you with watching me clip it back together. But once I have it clipped, I'm going to come back and we're going to put the little triangles in it. Okay? All right, so got the back all clipped up. Okay? Now, again, with these little triangle pieces, what I need to do is I'm going to take a piece of double-sided tape and I'm going to fold them in half and tape them shut. And then I'm going to put them into the seam of the bag, okay? So I'm just putting this on the skived edge that we did before. All right. Fold it in half, like so. There we go. We made a big triangle into a little triangle. Geometry. Now, I'm putting these in the seam of the bag. These have to go against the back of the bag, not the front of the bag. Otherwise, they're not very useful. Okay? And what I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and clip that much of it off. Okay, just a little bit. There's no real measurement to that. I guess it was 5/8 of an inch from the end. But I'm going to take the clip off, and right where this corner stops, okay, the corner coming around the edge of the bag, let me get that all the way into the middle of the camera, I'm sorry. This corner, that's the bottom of the bag, right where it stops, I'm going to insert this. Okay. As soon as I can get the daggum thing to open up for me. There we go. Alright. I'm going to insert it right there where it went in this way. Okay. So the big open part of the triangle is going to be facing the top of the bag. And I'll just clip it in there right at that where the bottom of the triangle that we cut off is right there at that curve. Okay. Now, grab a couple of clips, clip that sucker into place. That is where it's going to be. And then I need to do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so take a piece of tape. Put it on that skived edge, fold her in half. And then of the folded side, I'm going to clip just a little bit off the bottom. And then I'll do the exact same thing on this side of the bag. Okay, once again, right as this corner ends, that's where it needs to go. I want to put it on the inside of the bag with the open part of it facing the top of the bag. And then I'll clip it into place with the rest of the seam here. There we go, just like that. All right, so now I am ready to sew these two pieces. Actually, I'm almost ready to sew these two pieces. Let's grab one more little thing to make this a little more difficult. We'll grab our shoulder straps. Okay. And our shoulder straps are also going to sew into the back part of the bag, up at the top. All right. So, what you got to look at though is which way do they face? All right, when this bag is folded, I'm going to do this carefully so I don't pull all my dang clips off. When this bag is folded right side out, okay, I realize that looks pretty rough because again, I'm not trying to pull my clips off. Then this thing, this shoulder strap should be this way. All right. I have made the mistake before of sewing it in upside down because, you know, in my mind when I'm turning it right side out, like, oh, it'll flip over. No, it won't. So you want the back of the shoulder strap facing the back of the bag. Okay? Fold that right side out again. Now, we look at our bag pattern. We've got our center marked right here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these on both sides of the center. And I'm going to pull them until that wider part, it's hard to see, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to get it under the camera. I really need a cameraman. Where the wider part of the strap is about an inch below the seam. Okay, that way this will have flexibility and mobility to it, but then the wide part of the strap will be where it touches the the kid's shoulders, and it'll be a nice padded area as opposed to something that's more rigid like the oil tan strap there. All right, and then I'm just going to do the exact same thing over here. Looking in the bag, I'm making sure they're the same height because they've got different lengths on out here. That part doesn't matter to me. And then I'm going to put some clips to kind of hold them in place. And that'll actually be the first thing I sew when I go over to the machine. I'm going to just sew that little area where those are. And then I'll sew the rest of that half of the bag down. Okay, so we've got plenty to go over there and sew. I say we go ahead and move the stuff over to the machine and get on it. I'll be right with you. Okay, so I'm going to start with this pocket here. Okay. And real simple. I'm just going to go around it just like I do anything else. And I'm going to sew pretty close to the edge. I'm not leaving a ton of seam allowance here. Okay, I've got it stuck on there pretty good, so all I have to do is sew. When I get to these corners, I just sew right over those seams. That seam over a little bit better. Alright, when I got back to the beginning, I just sewed right over my first couple of stitches again and sealed that off. Okay, so hang on a second, I'll show you what this looks like. Okay, so now we can form our pocket a little bit. I just reach in there and push out those corners a little. Once we zip it up, there it is. Okay, we now have a pocket on the front of our bag. And yeah, that'll hold pencils and crayons and whatever else a kid will take to school. Crickets, rocks, you know. Alright. Now, on to sewing the back on. Like I said, the very first thing I'm going to sew is actually going to be right across these two straps back here. Okay, and I'm going to do that. And it won't even necessarily be part of the seam as much as it is just tacking them in before I knock them out of place. Okay? So, let me get all these clips out of the way, because there's tons of them. In the machine as I try to advance it to the needle here. Alright. What I have seen some people do is straight up sew this to one part of the bag and then sew the bag together, and that's a very good option. I probably should have done that for this video to show how much easier they can make it. But sometimes I'm like, I can sew all that together, that's not a problem. We already made plenty of mistakes in this video, we can keep going with them. That's what I do, folks. Alright, so I got one of them sewn down, now I'm going across to the next. And then I failed to mention there's two different ways we can do the handle, and one of the ways would be we just take a loop of leather and put it in between these two shoulder straps, but that's not the way we're going to do this one. So that's the simpler way. We're going to do the more difficult way just to have some fun with it. Alright, so now that those are tacked into place, I'm going to go ahead and I've got, 5/8 of an inch or so of seam allowance here, and I'm going to use that sucker up. I'm gonna use up a good bit of it, at least 3/8. There's no reason to sew way out on the edge where you could possibly miss one of your layers when you've got that much seam allowance to play with. Okay, so here we go. Sew it. Taking clips off as we go. I get to the next clip, give it a break and do it again. Okay, now I'm at the point where those triangles are coming up under it. I want to make sure I walk up on top of those pretty easily. Again, we can hand sew this if we want to, I just don't have the time to, and I've got a room full of sewing machines that tell me not to do it. Alright, down here at this corner, I'm just making sure everything lays flat and I'm not sewing some big bubble of material together. Now these shoulder straps, I'm just going to kind of flop over out of the way for a minute. Since I made sure to tack them in already, it'll be okay. Love it when I get to a straightaway. Okay, going up on the home stretch, we're almost back to where we started. sewed these straps in, I was up at the very top of the seam, and you know, I was just kind of tacking them in. Now I'm going to go around and actually sew them in, you know, with the seam allowance that I was using on the rest of it. Back to my starting point, so I'm just going to sew an extra couple of stitches around, and there we go. See where I put the scissors here. We'll turn this right side out and see how it looks before we continue. Okay. So there it is, okay? Not much form to it just yet, but once we pinch all the seams down and everything, it'll get better. Okay, but then, see, these are how this will go. We'll end up trimming off this brown strap, putting that in there, and there you have your shoulder strap. Okay, but not yet. Alright. Now, let's get our handle going. Okay? Again, I'm just pinching these seams, giving it some shape. And what I want to do is put my handle right here. Okay? So I'm going to have to flip that part back like that. It's going to be a little bit of a pain because of the shoulder straps. But that'll be okay. Okay. So we've got our handle material. Now there's a bunch of ways you can do this. You can just use a plain strap across there. A bunch of ways. But what I did is I skived this area kind of like what it shows on the paper pattern with the dotted lines. Okay. And I've only done this once before, so let's hope I don't screw it up on camera. I'm sure there's a good chance I can. But what I'm going to do is just right in the middle of that area, put a piece of tape right along the edge. And the hope is that I'll fold it over, but then that fold will kind of slope in and out, you know, where it's narrower in the center and where the handle part is narrower in the center and wider on the edges. Yeah. I'll do the other one. And I want to match, of course, the sides I'm doing. And there's what we're looking at. This side needs to come down a little bit more to match this side, or maybe this side needs to come up some. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is sew the sides of this thing down. Let me get some of these clips out of my way. Otherwise, they're just going to be hitting the floor the rest of the day. I'm going to start back here, start my sewing, and I'm not going to back stitch. I'm just going to go forward and then to the other side and sew along it a little bit as well. And what we'll do is we'll just tie that into the stitching where this is actually sewn down to the bag. Okay? one side, and we'll flip it around and do the other side. It's not the most even, but in just a second I'll show you how we can fix that. So I'm going to fold it in half and just kind of compare the ends, and it actually turned out more even than I thought it would. So I'm going to leave it just as it is, and we're going to stitch it to the bag. Okay. I'll grab a wider piece of tape here. Tape down each end. Okay, now I'm going to get this to lay as flat as I can. And one of the ways I can do that, I think, is going to be to unzip it a little bit. That might help, maybe. We'll see. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut these as well, trim them off, and they won't be in my way on the underside. Okay. I'm going to get this thing to lay as flat as I can, and as evenly as I can. And I'm going to take this and just put it across there and try to center it on those straps, because I know they're in the middle. Okay? Just like that. There we go. All right, now get this thing under the machine here carefully so I don't scratch it all up. I'm going to start out with a back stitch over the area that I stitched coming down. You know, when I was sewing the sides of the handle down. And then I'm just going to sew it down just like you would any other strap or handle or whatever. I'm just going to sew it on. Okay, now I need a back stitch at the very end here. There we go. Okay, now I got to do the same thing to the other end of the handle. I'm going to pause the camera while I do it, just because I know this video is getting pretty long. There's no reason for you to have to watch me do it twice. Okay, got the handle sewn on. Turn the bag inside out again. Now we need to sew the front to the back, okay? And we're going to do that. First we got to clip it together, okay? So I'm going to line up the centers just like we did on the back side. The bottom center and the front center, and then put all my clips all the way around. And then, very important, I need to unzip the bag just a little bit so that I can get my hand in there once it is sewn together. If you do not do this, there's a very good chance that you're going to struggle to get the bag turned right side out, because it's very difficult to unzip if you can't pull the pull tabs. Okay, so you just need to unzip it enough that you can get a hand in it. It doesn't have to be completely unzipped by any means. Okay, and I'm just going to clip all the way around all of this, just like we did the other side of it. When I come back, we'll sew it together, and then we're about done with this project. All right, here we go. Time to get to stitching. I'm going to check my bobbin. I've been doing the whole project off of one bobbin here, so let's check it and make sure it's going to survive. Oh man, I'm so glad I looked. I'd have been furious. There we go. Got one sitting there waiting to go. There we go. All right. Same as the front, or the back that we did. We're just going to stitch it, giving it a good 3/8 of an inch or so stitch seam allowance. Pulling clips as we go. Clips popped off a little early, and I've got to manhandle it into position here. Got that sucker stitched up good. Let's turn it right side out and see how she looks. Luckily, this is one of the easiest bags to turn right side out just because the opening is so large. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't be careful still not to stretch your zipper or something like that. Alright. So just like I did on the back piece, I'm going to have to kind of pinch the seams, kind of train this thing to be what it needs to be. It still thinks it's a hide of leather. It doesn't realize it's a backpack yet. But it'll get there. Alright. So, the very last thing we have to do is just attach the shoulder straps. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim them off down here to where they just fit inside those triangles, and then I'm just going to sew them into place pretty much right there, just like you see me holding it, except it'll be inside the triangle there. Okay, grab my scissors here. I'll just do it right here instead of going over to the desk. Just like that. And then I'm going to take it over here and sew across it, and it'll be there. You can rivet it in or whatever. I'm just going to sew it because everything else on this bag is sewn. Once again, we've kind of made a project where you don't need a bunch of hardware, so this is how you do it. Tell you what, I'm going to sew like an L shape. I'll sew along the bottom of it and then across the edge of it in just a second. So I'll start stitching, get myself into back stitch here. Okay, now that we're right there, I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. Got the needle down in the leather still so that it doesn't move on me. And I'll sew across. And then back stitch. There we go. That was easy. Now I'll go over here and do the exact same thing on the other side. And then guess what? Minus just a little bit more forming and stuff, we've got a backpack. Ain't it cool? Again, I'll sew my big L shape. Let me get all these clips out of the way here. This time I'll start it on this part of the L and then work my way down, and that way I'm not shoving all this bag up under the throat of the sewing machine. Back over to the desk and we'll review what we've done, and that'll be that. Alright. All right, folks, so here it is. Here's our completed backpack. It is done. I, squeezed on the creases a little bit, or the seams a little bit, to get them to act right and kind of hold shape. The design of this bag is perfect to leave this area right here for a big old like tool to patch or painting or embroidery, whatever. That's one of the reasons I designed it this way. Like I showed you at the very beginning of the video, one of my sons has that big old video game character head on it. But yeah, here it is. It is done. This is all the backpack most elementary kids need. I know, when I was a kid, we had tons of books and whatever else we had to carry around. Now it seems like all they have is like an iPad or some craziness that I don't even understand how to operate. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the build video. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to leave them in the comments, and I will answer them. If you have anything negative to say, leave that in the comments too, because I thrive off that, and I'm getting to where I'm a little bit more testy with my replies. So anyway, until next time, guys, I'm Aaron Heiser of Makers Love and Supply, and I hope you have a great day, and make it with makers.